Welcome, heathens and witches, to the Horn
and Cauldron podcast.
Yeah, we're back at it again. I'm John Norgrove. This is Julie Norgrove. This is our once weekly podcast. When during the week? Literally whenever we say. We are busy adults.
That's right. We're in charge here.
We're in charge here. You can't tell me what to do. You're not my real mom. Unless you are. You still can't tell me what to do.
You're not the schmalperimum.
Yeah, you're not. He's not no guy. Anywho, this is the Horn and Cauldron podcast, our once weekly mystical, magical, and otherwisely chaotic podcast, whereupon the on weeks, we do deep dives that are researched by Julie, and on the off weeks, I come up with a random topic, sometimes at the last possible second, and we talk about that.
So this is a
Those
research
are chaos.
week.
This is an adult week where research was done and adults are more involved. Anywho, this week we are talking about Ostara, specifically the 104 for Ostara, weather magic. Which magic?
Weather.
Where magic?
Who?
Everywhere. Who magic? You. So come along with us. Yeah. Reading Rainbow, bitches.
Well
Whatever.
played, my darling.
Yeah. Coming off the top here. Anywho, so what's going on this Ostara?
So, Ostara is held on the Vernal or Spring Equinox, which is the beginning of astronomical spring. This year, that happens to be 3/19 in the Northern Hemisphere. I'm actually using the astronomical dates where it's actually the equinox as opposed to the date that's like colloquially given for the Sabbath, which is typically the 21st of the month. It doesn't matter.
Is it because the 21st of the month, like it doesn't change, it's always the 21st?
Yes.
People who don't understand our calendar's wrong. Nice.
Yeah. So
do the math. The calendar's wrong. We know it. Nobody wants to change it because it'd be too much work. It's sort of like the metric system in America. We all know that it works probably better, but think about bald eagles and freedom. We're not going to change.
I feel like if we had to change the calendar at this point in time in the world, you would just hear like the astronauts in the International Space Station would just like hear a gentle screaming from Earth. You know, very similar to like Hitchhiker's Guide right before they blow up the Earth. It'd just be like,
I feel like it would never ever work. You would like everywhere would just have two dates listed.
Yeah,
you know, we would just, it's or we would vote on it. You know how like sometimes like research vessels or whatever, they let like people vote on the name, and we would be like, what do we want to name the 13th month? And it's going to be called like Monthly McMonth Face or some shit. Like it's just, there's too much chaos, and humans are kind of too shit at this point in time to like organizedly be like, oh, we recognize that there's a problem. Why don't we fix this problem?
The way the world's going
really
right now, it would definitely end up being something really dumb.
Yeah.
So
that's fine. Whatever. Our calendar's close enough.
Yeah.
Right? You know how we celebrate holidays? Plus or minus 2 weeks is A-okay.
Exactly.
Because like a Sabbath on a specific date is a wholly unnecessary feature.
Yeah, we're not getting that day off from work.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So
I got like stuff going on, dog. Like.
Yeah, and what if it's like a weekday?
Hey, get out of here. What if there's a space launch that I need to watch?
What if it's wrestling?
What if it's wrestling night? Yeah. Especially what if it's a weekday. Like if we're going to throw a party, I'm not throwing a Tuesday party. I am an adult without a 401k. So
a Friday party, maybe.
Oh, a Friday party, I'm down.
Maybe
I'm down to clown on a Friday party. Tuesday party? You pack that shit up. Get all the way out of here.
Yeah.
My guy, I'm not doing a Tuesday party.
You want to party on a Sunday? Also, no. What are you doing?
I mean, Mondays already suck, so I'm okay with a Sunday
like
party,
Sunday
but I work for
brunch?
me. So.
Because if it's Sunday brunch, I'm fine.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
But
A Sunday until 3 a.m. Monday party is a real... That's a real, like, me and all my friends are going to be not okay at work. Like, I've done those. I've
done those, and I
don't need those.
You know what?
Man.
I'm too old for that now.
Yeah, I'm too old for that.
That's okay. I fully embrace that part of me now. Yeah. So
was that on wrestling tonight? I hurt when I move. Yeah. I hurt when I move. I don't need to be doing that shit.
I also hurt when I move. Okay, so an equinox is an equinox because on that day and night are equal. And so each day after that, the day is a little bit longer than the night, all the way up until the summer solstice.
Yeah.
And Ostara is the second spring festival of the witches' calendar of the Sabbats. Cultures throughout the world have been celebrating the spring equinox, so this is nothing new. The oldest recorded celebration began some 4,700 years ago.
Yeah, and that's just like the one that we know about, right?
Yeah.
Like there could be older stuff, you know, and we just don't know about it or whatever.
Yeah.
You gotta think, once you start calculating time, stuff like the longest day, the shortest day, and the exact middle of those two things is like pretty easy calculations.
Yeah.
It's just like a little observation over several years and you're gonna be like, what's up?
Especially when you don't have like, you know, a smartphone or like social media to like lose your time in.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You know, they're not scrolling on their cell phones. They're just staring at the stars and being like, I think that shit moved a little bit to the left. Moved a little bit to the left. And then they're just going to stand there and stare.
Yeah.
Wait.
Just every day.
You got time, dog.
Yeah, exactly.
And like, you know, you got to like build stuff and like,
yeah.
You know, you can't just go to the fridge and pull out a slice of old pizza. You got to go like hunt or gather and / or gather.
And feed enough people in short enough time that the food doesn't go bad.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the real one, right? It's not about the hunting or the gathering. It's the fact that like any food you have or make needs to be at like immediately.
Like immediately.
Yeah. Or just like kept hot. That's that like pot over the fire shit, dog. Right?
Perpetual soup.
The perpetual soup? Yeah, the soup of infinity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just because the infinity gauntlet of soups must always be kept at a heat where nothing bad can happen. As well as if you don't have a fire going on, you're gonna like freeze to death.
You're probably just gonna die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, or like stumble into some shit because it's dark. Yeah, go out to where there's no like sci-fi light and it's just nature light and tell me about that advanced darkness.
Yeah.
Right? Especially on like a new moon, bro.
Yeah.
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 Like out here where we live,
dark.
like it's underneath, especially underneath the redwoods where it already blocks out most of the light anyway.
Yeah.
Like on a new moon night, if like the power's out and it's a new moon, it is, you literally open the door and the dark walks in a little bit. The dark comes in, the light don't spill out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's a lot of darkness.
It's a lot, especially like in the depths of winter. It's wild.
Yeah.
So anyways, festivals for the spring equinox are typically associated with new beginnings, eggs, rabbits, flowers, and rebirth. And in many Eastern European cultures, they welcome spring by killing winter, either by burning or drowning effigies of winter.
Yeah.
Not people drowning.
Effigies.
Effigies.
Not people drowning.
Yeah, no, not people drowning. No, that did not make sense. You know what? It wouldn't be an episode if I didn't say something that was wrong, because we don't like warm up before these or anything. We're just like, all right, let's go.
Yeah, this is like, raw off the dome. Sometimes neither of us want to do this, but we know that we have to because we don't definitely.
And sometimes it's too late because I know that I don't want to do it tomorrow, and I have to do it because we've already put it off for so many. Yeah. So this is unedited, off the cuff. We don't do takes in this.
Welcome to our minds. I'm not gonna edit this stuff out because that's too much fucking work, man.
Yeah.
It's just so much work.
Yeah.
And I'm not a professional. I am at best stumbled into.
Besides, if we were like actually physically hanging out with you, dear listener, dear watcher, this is exactly what it would be like. So, you're welcome for that.
Come over to our house. This is how we talk to you. It's basically like this, right? Constantly changing subjects, talking over each other.
Only there's like a little more talking to the dogs.
Yeah, the dogs are slightly more involved.
The dogs are definitely more involved.
Yeah, but they can't be involved in this. They're interrupting.
They're monsters.
Yeah,
yes.
That's fair.
All three of them are monsters. Yeah. So if you want to learn more about Ostara, listen to episode 101, which is Ostara 101, episode 8, which is focused on the goddess Eostre, eggs, and rabbits, as well as sort of like general overall Ostara stuff. Ostara 102, which is episode 34, focuses on rebirth traditions, and Ostara 103, Flower Magic, episode 52, is about florography and Victorian flower meanings. And of course, you can always catch Hidden Heathenry in Modern Holidays, one of my favorite episodes, which is episode 26, that goes over, is a holiday a pagan festival?
It's like the holidays.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's a fun one.
So yeah, check those out. This is a 104. So what we're doing here is we are taking a specific natural element of sorts and that is related to or sort of a prominent feature during the period of the year during the Sabbath. And for this episode, we are talking about the weather.
Yeah, weather.
Because during spring, weather be weathering.
It's true, man. That's true, right?
Like, you can go from like a cold, rainy, blustery day, and then like 2 days later have it be like
75,
warm,
like fantastic,
and sunny, and birds are singing, and you're just like, what even is my life?
Yeah,
and that's just what happens during spring. Weather be weathering.
Yeah, it's planting weather. It's preparing the earth weather. It's going outside and recognizing that you have a bunch of yard work that needs to get started weather, right? It's
please no more rain. I'm tired of this weather.
Yeah, right? I mean, we got a whole thing about like April showers bring May flowers, but like...
It's like I'm unpacking all of my tank tops weather because there was one day where it was warm enough to wear maybe a tank top if I also wore warm shoes and pants.
Don't put that winter coat away. It's not done yet.
Yeah,
but it's not soon.
Yeah, you may be in fall spring number 3, but it's not time yet.
Yeah.
So all my Californians, you know what's up. So anyway, that's why we chose weather. So we're going to start off with, can you control the weather? Is that what we're talking about today? No.
All right, so listen, everybody affix your tinfoil witch hats. Let me tell you about this government site. Well, with blasting radio signals into the ionosphere or whatever.
No.
What movie is that where they're trying to control the weather and they stop the rotation of the Earth's core?
Is it the core?
Is it called the core? Is that what it's called?
I don't know.
Where they drill down into the core with that submarine worm thing.
Yes, that is the
starting
core.
with nukes.
Yes, that is the movie.
I love that movie
The Core.
so ferociously. Yeah. Every ounce of that movie is so over the top.
They demolished
insane.
San Francisco Bay.
Yeah,
in that one.
Oh, yeah. with a bloody hole in the atmosphere, and then just like a laser beam of sun, which again, not really how that works. Like cooks through the bay and like melts the Golden Gate. or whatever.
Yeah.
It's such a badassy. Well, there's also what is it in Paris? That's where all the birds go like haywire and start attacking people.
You know, honestly, the only one I can remember is the San Francisco one because I'm just like, I've been there. And like, that's local to me. So I'm just like, yay, home team.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I guess yay, home team. The Golden Gate Bridge gets melted, I think. Whatever.
That's one of the reasons I like the new Godzilla movies is they're relatively local for the most part.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
No, we have an entirely different conspiracy theory that we're going to be talking about today, which is basically 3 episodes with 3 conspiracy theories in a row. However, we're not subscribing to these conspiracy theories. In fact,
maybe. I don't know what conspiracy theory we're talking about, so maybe.
I was a little surprised when I got to it, actually. I was like, oh, really? That's it. Okay. So anyway, you probably can't control the weather. So there are a lot of spells out there that are like, bring the rain or whatever that sort of thing is. Like, bring the rain, stop the rain. You know, but stop the heat because now it's too hot and there's fires.
Stop the snow because it's too cold.
Stop the snow because it's too cold. You know, there are certainly ethical considerations if you were to be able to change the weather or control it with magical power.
Most of those ethical considerations are that you're a small consciousness and a human, so changing the weather may absolutely ruin it for somebody else. But at the same time, also, technically, we kind of can control the weather. Like, take your tinfoil witch's hat off. Full science, we know how to seed clouds. We know how to start rainstorms. We know how to cancel tornadoes. This is my favorite piece of weather science. Backwards spinning fire tornadoes is the answer to that. So that's why we don't do that. So just a heads up. But we technically know we can do it. It's just horrifying.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, like, we could, but again, like, we can't do most shit right as, like, a team of people, so we certainly shouldn't be playing with Earth. A good example is we know that putting, like, plastics and smog into the oceans and atmosphere is bad, and it's almost impossible to stop people from doing it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like, shout out to everybody out there who's living in a rural community or a small township who has a factory upriver that's just polluting your water to the point that everybody's glowing faintly in the moonlight.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't have a solution for that. But those people are pieces of shit. So I agree with you there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways.
Anyway, weather science.
Weather science. Well, we're not really talking about science. First, we're going to talk about there's like a whole bunch of claims throughout history of magic users being able to control the weather.
Sure. Yeah.
Everything from Shakespeare to the Bible to
I know you mean Shakespeare telling a
fiction.
story about weather control, but in my mind, Shakespeare's plays altered the weather relative to the scenes in the play because he was just a wizard, Harry.
But what if all his plays were real? So
yeah,
then there you go.
Maybe.
So
What if all his plays were real?
there were a ton of
I mean, those are
stories.
called historical plays, my guy.
Yeah.
We already have words for that.
Yeah. There's a ton of stories, especially in medieval times and like the early medieval era, like just past the Dark Ages. Hey, guess what? The time of the Christianization of Europe, drinking game.
Mid-Earl.
So, during medieval times, there were people called Tempestarii, and that's the plural form, but we're mostly talking about it in plural.
Sure.
So a Tempestarii, the Tempestarii were weather sorcerers, and they lived among the people, but especially in farming communities where the weather meant a lot more to people than just like being a nuisance and needing a good hooded cloak. Like bad weather could mean that your whole crop fails and now your family starves.
Yeah.
Or you don't have enough to feed your family after paying your taxes to the lord of the land area.
Yeah.
So farmers would often pay Tempestarii to ensure that there were no bad naturally occurring weather that would go on to befall their crops. They would also pay Tempestarii to prevent evil Tempestarii, or witches, from casting weather spells that would harm their crops, and also to make sure that the people of Magonia wouldn't steal their crops.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know who those people are. Also, I like the hustle. Like, listen, you give me some money, I'm going to make sure no bad weather happens. And then when some bad weather happens, you're like, no, hold on. Bad weather magic people. Bad Tempestarii did it. I'm one of the good ones. I'm going to need you to pay me extra money, and I'll stop the bad guys from doing it. And then anytime bad weather happens, you're like, one slip through the cracks. I don't know. I needed more seeds or whatever I need for this magic. It's very, it's
very mob.
It's very protection.
Protection racket.
Racket, right? It's like, oh, listen, man, I am preventing other gangsters from beating your place up or whatever.
Yes.
Right? It's very much like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
does that mean the mob's associated with weather magic?
Maybe.
At
least back then it sort of was.
Probably.
So I'm going to come back to this people of Magonia thing.
Sure.
So Magonians were people who lived on floating land in the sky.
Those are called clouds.
And these people often had famines. So no, not clouds. These people lived on like floating islands in the sky.
Yeah.
Like Avatar, the blue people.
Yeah.
Thing. I was like, oh no, how do I say this in a way?
Smurf benders?
No bending happening there. Just Zahelu.
Yeah,
so
just Zahelu.
So the Magonians, oddly enough, often had famines. Yeah. And when the Magonians had famines, they would pay a Tempestarii an evil Tempestarii to create bad weather on the crops. And then the Magonians would sail their sky ships, in the clouds. And during the storm, they would collect the crops that had fallen to take home and then eat themselves.
All right. Yeah, I mean, if you got sky ships, I feel like you could just swoop in there and kick Jethro's ass.
Nope. Sure. That's not it. In fact, one time, villagers even, quote unquote, found 4 people who were supposed to be Magonians that had fallen out of their ships during a weather raid. These people were imprisoned, questioned, and put to death by stoning in typical witch trial fashion.
Cool. Are these people differentially looking? How do we know what a Magonian is? Is it like a small dude or like an especially large dude? What do cloud people look like?
We don't know specifically. It's sort of the
Or is it just that they found like 4 like real hungry dudes like digging through some rotted crops during a rainstorm, and they're like, I bet this guy's a Magonian, and he's like, oh, I live like next to you, bro. And they're like, that's what a neighbor, that's what they think a neighbor would say. Get him.
It's most likely that these people were actually
just like poor villagers,
like not even poor villagers, but like poor beggars that would go from house to house and town to town. Yeah. Sometimes they were sometimes they would like band up together and basically like bully people who lived in like small area and like small towns to get them to stay in their area and feed them and that sort of thing because of like host stuff.
Yeah.
So
yet these are the people that the mafia is telling you they're trying to protect you from. Listen, it's not that I want to collect money from you. It's that I have to collect money from you in order to prevent the bad guys from trying to jump you for your crops. I am a simple hedge wizard.
Yes.
A Tempestarii trying to do this.
Now, it is with these Magonians that we see the conspiracy theory happen. Sure. Not just that there's a conspiracy theory that the Magonians exist, but this actually ties into what many modern day people talk about as some of the medieval proof for UFOs.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, sky people are sky people.
That there's like a gap in like weird UFO conspiracy stuff between like super
like UFO is like a modern term, right?
It is.
So like before UFO, you would just call them some other stuff. Also, let me get this straight. There are people who are like aliens, capable of intergalactic travel, interstellar travel, right? These guys, they come to Earth. You know what they want to do? They want to probe you, and they want your crops.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think these ships are run on? You think they're using one of those? I wonder if these alien ships that these people are talking about are using those Mr. Fusion 3000s, you know?
Maybe.
You just put like a tin can and a banana peel in there and you're just like ready to warp space-time again.
Yeah. Yeah. So I read that and I was like, oh, I should have guessed this, but wow.
I would have never, if you had not said that, I would have never made the connection between like Magonian legend, a statement that makes almost no sense at all, with like modern like UFO hunters.
I waited to see if you were going to pick up
There's no way I would have guessed that. Not in a million years, man.
So anyway, Tempestarii were either paid in coin, which is actually a little unusual, or they were mostly paid in the share of a farmer's crops. And oftentimes the Tempestarii, much like the racketeering side of things, often charged so much that people were sometimes unable to pay their tithes to the church. And this is where that became a problem for the church.
Fucking loves money, dude.
Yes.
Oh my God. You know who loves money more than anybody else? Churches. Churches love money. They love money as much as, if not, probably a little bit more than kings and queens.
Yeah.
The churches.
Yeah. And this is actually
very
where
fancy robes. You know how expensive it is to keep that hat that high?
Right?
Very
This
expensive.
is actually where the protection racket thing gets a little wonky, but I'm sure for those of you longtime listeners, you probably already know where this is going.
Speaking of a protection racket and paying tithings, we have a Patreon. That you could join, and definitely Magonians are not gonna mess with your crops, probably, and if they do, it's probably just because not enough money or something, right? Isn't that how protection rackets work? Honestly, I have no clue. Like, I know it happens in movies all the time, but I don't care and don't pay attention.
Oh my God, okay.
Yeah. Anywho, so if you're dealing with Magonians, what's up? I got spells or something? However you stop them.
There are spells in the Patreon.
Yeah, I got spells in the Patreon. So listen, everything's coming up. You giving me money. You should give that a try. Patreon.com/NoJive. So yeah, anywho, what were you talking about?
So the church basically saw this Tempestarii protection racket thing happening. And by the way, not all of these people were like super duper shady.
Oh, yeah.
right?
There were
Some
probably
of
like
them
4 or 5
were
Tempestarii who
well-meaning
were like
people.
holding the storms back. And
Yeah.
all the other ones are just like, why is the Tempestarii such bad guys? And this guy's like, I'm not a bad guy. I don't know what's happening right now.
Yeah. So, there was a priest who was named Agobard of Leon, who, and he lived in the 9th century in Spain. And he wrote a whole treatise on weather magic. Not how to do it, but how he felt about people who did it and believed in it.
Oh my God. Listen, if you love sassy drama, like if you want like big royals, Hollywood tier, like celebrity drama, read old-timey treaties.
Yeah.
Right? Like, read anything Greek philosophers.
They're basically
those dudes were so sassy. Right? Read anything, like, a dude who wasn't in the church initially, right?
Yeah.
Or was, like, kind of on the outskirts of church, so they had to deal with, like, regular people more than church politics. He had bold opinions about everything.
Treatises were basically like ye old-timey blogs.
They were, dog,
So, yeah, by the way, this guy was not, like, a great dude. He has this, like, banger on weather magic, but he was, like, crazy anti-Semitic and just generally not a great person. So
I'm gonna go so far as to say, if you're reading these treaties, the treatises, they most of these writers are probably pieces of shit.
Yeah.
But
so anyway, this guy wrote a whole treatise on weather magic, and in it he discusses at length the practices of local villagers and farmers regarding weather magic and how dumb he thought they all were. He argues that people who believed in Megonians that Megonians are coming in skyships were, quote, overcome with so much foolishness that they were blinded with profound stupidity.
Nice. Savage burn, dude.
Yeah, it was pretty savage.
Yeah, that's quite a
somebody
savage
that lived in like 800 something.
Yeah, 9th century burn, it's still savage, still hurts. Right? Mm-hmm. Overcome with so much foolishness that they were blinded by profound stupidity. I can think of like millions of people that applies to right now today.
Yeah.
Hundreds of millions of people.
Yeah, and his big argument in this treatise is that Tempestarii are liars because only God can create the weather because he creates everything.
All right, well, I mean, that's actually pretty reasonable attack.
This is
actually... From his perspective,
yeah, this is actually pretty likely an early play to tamp down widespread pagan beliefs because he was in sort of an outlying area.
Sure.
And to boost the amount of money that the church was making because farmers could now pay a priest to protect the crops. And also in this place and in this time he lived, tithes to the church were optional. Yeah. So people did it if they felt like it was great.
So this guy's like, listen, these Tempestarii, they got a good racket. What if I moved in and was like, I know that's like a guy controlling the magic, but you know who really controls the magic? Jesus. But if you give me, like, don't give that guy money. He's trying to steal money from you. But if you give me money, I'm gonna call him Jesus and be like, listen, homie, this farm over here, don't mess with this farm. Jesus got you.
Yeah.
Jesus loves.
Yes. However, this also created problems.
That's the most displacement energy ever, dog.
Yeah. This also created some problems because now the farmers only have their priest and ultimately their god to blame for the foul weather wrecking their crops, as opposed to mythical sky people or evil weather wizards, or also just like natural disasters, because people also believe that some of these bad weather events happen through like natural disasters. But now with the church taking this tack is like, well, God is all powerful and he's like creating all these, all this weather stuff. So tell me and I'll tell that guy to like not mess with you. Yeah. So when bad weather stuff does happen, now all of the weather stuff, instead of just 2/3 of it, can be attributed to the big G guy in the sky.
Yeah.
So
that's not a good look. Listen, you got that money, but now you got to answer for Jesus.
Yeah. So it did not take very long in the grand scheme of things for the church to be like, ruh-roh, we got to figure out a thing to say about this. So in the 11th century, Pope Gregory VII sent out a papal edict, which is basically like a commanding blog post that said that people couldn't hold Christian priests or, quote, wicked women answerable for bad weather, storms, unfruitful years, or outbreaks of plagues. So basically, he just added terms and conditions.
If the Pope has to make a papal edict about this, I'm going to tell you what's going on right now. A lot of dead priests. That was like a remarkably large number of dead priests.
And broke churches.
And like old ladies being beat up or some stuff. And he was like, all right. I think we're making too much money off of this thing. We're getting blamed for it also. We got to stop. We got to shut this down.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, really what happened is they fucked around and found out.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. Well,
yeah. So also, oddly enough, around this time, we see, and right up through the height of the witch trials in the late 1700s, we see a bunch of papal edicts and laws passed in a variety of different places condemning the act of weather magic and those who practiced it.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So they found out.
Yeah. He's like, don't do those Ponzi schemes. I mean, our Ponzi scheme is okay, but don't blame us for our Ponzi scheme. But don't do those Ponzi schemes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Smooth.
Yeah. So between the 15th and 19th century, we find a whole bunch of instances of people blaming a witch for bad weather.
Oh my God. There are 4 different kinds of font on this page here. And there are also 4 different sizes and boldnesses of these fonts.
Okay,
I am filled with rage.
What I did for some of this was I just snipped something because it was too much work.
Like a picture?
Yeah, I just snipped a piccture of some text.
Like
a thing I don't normally do, but I was like, I'm not going to.
You got to retype this for the notes, dog.
No, I'm not going to do that. No.
I ain't putting.
No, we're not doing that.
I ain't putting those pictures in my thing.
That's fine. This is for your ears and eyes only.
Yeah, I guess.
So, anyways. Most of these accusations about witches or sorcerers and bad weather and confessions were likely because of torture rather than the actual instance of weather magic, like we all know happened with the witch trials.
No one expects the Spanish Inquisition, dog. So
yeah. So in the book titled Anthropology from Criminal Proceedings of the Austrian Alpine Provinces with Special Consideration of the Magic and Witch Trials, 1455 to 1850.
Okay. We're going to take that all the way back. You turn that into an acronym. All right? Or you shorten that shit to some of these witch trials.
You know what?
Some of these witch trials, all of this, blah, blah, blah. I'm okay with that shit because then I don't have to read the colon.
Let me tell you what. Book titles prior to like 1900s, actually. Yeah. Book titles prior to 1900s were the Wild West.
Too much words.
Sometimes you had 2 words, like Malefice Maleficarum. And sometimes you had Anthropology from Criminal Proceedings of the Austrian Alpine Provinces with Special Consideration of the Magic and Witch Trials, 1455 to 1850.
It's too many. It's just too many. It's too much. It's too much. If I saw that, I would be like, I don't care that specifically. About anything. It's too much.
Yes. So the author compiled many interesting accounts of weather magic, and I found some of these in a blog, which is linked in the show notes in the sources, which I found super interesting. It was kind of a longer blog post, but I highly recommend it. You can find that on occultworld.com under the Tempestarii, I believe. So anyway.
It'll be linked in the
It's linked in the thing.
Don't worry about that.
All the most pertinent ones are always at the top. So anyway, this one is Great Witch Trial against Christoph Gosner zu Sexton in Innkeep in Brixen, Tyrol from the 21st of June in 1595. So the guy mentions that he couldn't possibly know how often he fended off bad weather, but whenever he saw thick and black weather coming close, he fended it off and pushed it back behind the highest mountains where no rooster caws, no farmhand mows, no oxen lies down, no flower blooms, so that nobody suffers any damage. So this is a really
this guy was on trial for being an absolute gangster?
Yeah. So this is an interesting one because
bold strategy, Cotton.
During the whole trial, which was chaired by the author of the book The Witch Hammer, this guy was able to basically prove that he used his magic for the benefit of his community and always invoked Jesus and the Christian Trinity. He never invoked the devil in his spells, and he was set free.
Nice.
This
guy's such a good lawyer.
The rarest ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it seems like perhaps the part about pushing it back past the highest mountain may be more than just the descriptor, but may also be the spell itself.
Yeah.
Because you have to remember that while these people may not have been practicing weather magic, we also have to live in that like superposition that maybe they were in fact doing this thing.
Yeah. But with the power of Jesus.
Yeah.
The power of Christ compelled those clouds.
Yes, that's exactly what he says happened.
Yeah, I support that. Yeah.
In another witch trial in Carinthia, Austria, in 1603, for Louisa Neuniger, Louisa said that last Good Friday, she was seen digging up some soil at a crossroads and later threw such soil into the creek near a farm. And what she did was she walked barefoot through the creek 3 times back and forth, throwing the soil with her left hand behind her back into the water, all the while saying, "As it is true that I throw the soil into the creek, as shall be true that the rain should fall on the property of Reuben Gamper." So this one definitely seems like an act of revenge. Not sure who Reuben is, but bet he deserved it. And this is a really great example of sympathetic magic, something that we talked about in the pub chat where we were discussing sympathy magic in the Kingkiller Chronicles.
Yeah.
Because what she's doing is she's basically saying this soil is going to fall into this water just like I want rain to fall on those crops.
Yeah, she's just using the as above so below connection sort of logic, you know? She's like, as I do this thing, this other thing happens.
Exactly.
As I throw this dirt on this guy's land, also fuck this guy.
Yes. And then the last one that I grabbed here is a witch trial against Hansel from St. Vitzburg.
Hansel?
Yes. Hansel.
Hansel?
And this was for witch flight in alliance with the devil and for making weather. And this was in 1658. So the trial says, furthermore, Hansel says that when farmers asked him to, during dry times, like a drought, he would take a trough filled with water and he would put 3 hot stones used in soap making in it and put it all outside under an open sky, whereupon it rained soon. So basically, he also said that he learned from farmers that other people do this too. But basically what he did was he put 3 hot stones in a thing of water and put it underneath the sky. So this is another interesting idea behind a sympathy magic, something you see really commonly in medieval weather magic, where you are it's sort of like the soil in the river thing. They're taking a hot stone and putting it into water. The hot stone is going to heat up the water, and when you heat up water, you get steam, and we know that steam creates clouds of vapor, and clouds of vapor have to rain.
Yeah.
And they would have known that in 1658 as well. They may not have known a whole bunch of stuff about the weather that we currently know today, but they knew a fair amount.
I don't really know that much.
That's super true.
There's so much stuff we don't know, bro. Ask anybody about the oceans.
Yeah, so this is like a sort of a form of sympathy magic, because this guy definitely wasn't putting enough hot stones in enough water to actually create a cloud that would be then causing
This guy's summoning comets into lakes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Big enough hot stone, big enough body of water. I'm gonna make rain. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. There's a lot of other examples of weather magic historically. But rather than talking about historical examples, I'd like to talk about ways that you can practice weather magic yourself. Even though I said that you just can't do that.
I mean, you can practice weather magic, but I feel like weather magic is it's sort of like about the intention of what you want to do. As opposed to what is that? Men who stare at
goats.
Men who stare at goats, right? When that guy's leaning out the car window and he's bursting clouds. Yeah. He's like, I like to keep my mind sharp by bursting clouds. And he's staring out the window, popping clouds or whatever. Yeah. Also, if you have not seen Men Who Stare at Goats, that movie is so funny. My goodness.
It's pretty wild.
It's a great movie. I love that movie to death, man.
Yeah. Well, whether or not you believe it's possible to actually control the weather with magic, here are some ways that you can incorporate weather magic into your practice. So we're going to start out by talking some more about sympathetic magic, which is linking a mundane object or action to the current weather and using that to now power your spell. So some ways that you can do this is linking your shower water to the rain.
Yeah, sure. Shower's just tiny rain.
Yep. Dispelling fog by blowing away steam that comes up from, boiling water.
Yep. Tiny steam, tiny fog.
Tiny fogs, yeah. Using your oven to mimic a hot day. Don't put your head in it.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, you would put stuff in the oven that would be safe to go into an oven.
Bake some bread, say some words.
Yeah.
Right?
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Running a fan to simulate the wind.
Yeah. It's tiny wind.
Tiny wind, yeah. Covering a lamp with a cloth, like clouds blocking the sun.
Make sure that it's like an LED lamp.
Yeah.
And you're paying attention to it because you don't want to start a fire. Incandescent light bulbs get remarkably hot. Remember when we were all children and we baked tiny brownies with an incandescent light bulb? Yeah. So, I'm just saying.
Yeah. I remember when I was very young, there was like I don't know, Good Housekeeping or whatever magazine that I had seen in waiting at like some sort of office. Like a doctor's office or something like that, or, hair salon. And it was like, if you have a visitor coming over, spray some of your perfume on the light bulb and the whole house will smell like you. And I remember thinking, that's a really weird thing to do. But, I guess that makes sense. And then later on, I had seen the movie Earth Girls Are Easy.
Great movie.
And in it, Gina Davis literally does that thing. And, the light bulb shatters.
Yeah, because you're thermal shocking it. First of all, if you're going to do that, spray it on the inside of the lampshade, not the light bulb. And also, still don't do it. And especially if it's fucking already a hot light bulb and aerosolized. Like in an aerosol can, you are literally asking to make a bomb.
Yeah.
So, don't
of course, always practice proper food and fire safety, folks.
Yeah.
That's a thing that we care about. So anyway, you can use things like that to sort of mimic weather magic.
Yeah.
And then
take big weather, make it small.
Yeah, exactly. Tiny weather.
Tiny weather.
So then you could use the energetic properties of the weather to power your spell. The sun heats up and provides energy, or it allows you to see. Fog obscures things. Wind attracts or repels things. Rain cleanses and purifies. And there's more, sort of use your imagination, whatever works best for you.
Yeah, totally. Well, and depending on what spell you're trying to accomplish, if you can bring some right now weather all up in there.
Yeah.
If it's a hot day and you're doing some magic in the middle of summer, maybe take your spell stuff and put it in ice cube tray and pop that in the freezer. Let that freeze. Then set it out in the heat. Let that shit melt to power your spell.
Exactly.
Boom. You use the power of the sun.
Yeah.
Right? You're cooking with fusion, baby.
Yeah. That's a great idea.
Yeah, it is a great idea.
Yeah, we talk about that a little bit in Yule 104, ice magic or snow magic. Ice and snow.
Yes, maybe.
Yes. You can also use clouds for divination by asking a question and then looking for familiar shapes in the clouds, just as you would for tea leaf readings.
Yep.
I like to just look at clouds and see what kind of cool things I can see in them.
Yep.
That is one of my personal favorite pastimes.
You do like doing that.
I do. And you don't do it.
I'm not really a cloud shapes person.
Yeah, we'll be driving.
I see enough shapes in enough things without intention that I don't need bonus shapes in my life.
Yeah, no, we'll be driving and I'll stop and be like, that one looks like a platypus sitting on a bear.
I will be driving and she will be looking at clouds. We are not driving and she stops the car to look at clouds. I cannot stress this enough. She is not a bad driver. That is not what's happening. I know what she just described as a fucking actual road crime. That has never happened. She just used the worst possible way to describe it. Too few words, my guy. Too few words. Yeah, if I'm driving somewhere, she will be like, look at that. It looks like a thing. And I'm just like, of course it does, whatever.
Yeah, sometimes if I'm driving, I'll be like, hey, babe, I need you to take a picture of the sky right now. And he's like, why? And I'm like, because there's a cloud there that I need to send to my friend.
She does do that.
And then I will later on, when we get to our destination, grab the picture and then send it to my friend and be like, that one looks like a dragon. And then she'll be like, yes, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mid-conversation. Doesn't matter.
It's just cloud people stuff. Whatever.
Just cloud people things. Just Magonian things.
Just doing Magonian stuff.
Just Magonian stuff.
Yeah.
So you can also research deities associated with the type of weather that you're wanting to work with as well, or the type of weather that there is currently. So, like for instance, you can use Thor for storms, or Amun for working with wind, or Helios for sunny days, or Zeus for rain.
Yeah.
And any deity associated with just the broad term of weather would work for literally any of those too. Those are, of course, just a small snippet. There are a absolute ton of deities associated with weather and specific types of weather.
Who's your favorite weather god via the kind of weather that you like the most? Comment below. I'm pro Thor and storms. I love storms. But I also love the rain. I know people are very like, it's wet and it's raining and stuff like that. And I'm just like, I don't care.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like the one that I want to know the most about is Perkunos, who is the Proto-Indo-European predecessor to the idea of Thor. And if I remember correctly, he creates thunder by riding around on a dragon. And that sounds pretty rad to me.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
But is it as rad as two goats that scream?
I mean, I don't know, man. That was the best part of that Thor movie. Was
those screaming goats.
Every single time they made a sound, I was here for it.
I love goats ferociously.
Yeah. It was pretty good. It's pretty good.
Cute animals, good food.
Yeah.
2 for 1 special in goats.
Exactly. Yeah. That is a good question. Tell us who your favorite weather-related deity is.
Yeah. Mine's definitely Thor. But I practice Norse mythology, so that's a bit. Bias.
Yeah. I would say that I have to.
I guess I've never even thought about Zeus for rain, right? And obviously, thunder and lightning means it's got to be raining. I fully grasp that, but in my mind, Zeus is just raw dogged thunder and lightning, and not even thunder. It's just lightning. This guy's just the Zot, none of the clap. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, so in my very brief looking into this, just for a few examples, most of the deities that I found that were for storms / thunder and lightning were also for rain. But there are some, shall we say, lesser deities.
I mean, I guess you can
lesser
have
known
dry
deities
thunder,
for...
but can you have dry lightning?
Yes.
So, I guess thunder comes from lightning, so that makes sense. So, I guess you could say that, theoretically, you could do, there exists a
dry lightning's a whole thing.
That is a whole thing. That is a whole thing.
We had a whole series of fires here. Wildfires, several years ago.
That's fine. Okay. I wasn't thinking. So, I guess you could have a dry Zeus. So, really, second question. First question, what's your favorite weather deity? Second question, how do you feel about dry Zeus? Right? What's a dry Zeus?
I don't know, man.
Has he got a 30-day chip yet? What's going on with that? Yeah. Yeah, that's the joke now.
I was not sure where you were going with that.
That's fine. I had no clue where I was going with that.
I was just thinking about, okay, so when I was doing this research, I often have a whole bunch of weird little rabbit holes that I jump down or that I have to resist myself from
I think the word
down.
is fall down, but continue.
And recently, we've been watching a lot of video breakdowns because we follow a lot of people on YouTube that do video essays, particularly on movies and
we are
stuff.
A bit of cinephiles. That's a thing.
Yeah. So we've been watching these ones about Dune, and there's been a lot of conversation about how Frank Herbert, the author of Dune, had a breeding kink, and
yeah,
and
it's weird.
Yeah, it is, and I was doing research for this episode while we were watching one of these videos, and I was looking up what deities are for rain, and I was like, well, I guess I'll use Zeus, and then I was like, you know what, Zeus had a breeding kink.
Yeah, he did. That guy sexed everything. Yeah, he was a real fucking problem. Maybe he needs to be a bit dry. You know what I'm saying? Resist the fucking urge, dog. Right? Like,
So anyway,
I'm not judging, but also judge.
I think that I would have to say that the one that I'm the most interested in is out of this like list of 4 deities.
Oh, I wasn't just thinking of this list. I would have just chosen.
It's probably 4. Amun, because Amun is like a sun god, but also a wind god. But there's also like a lot of like smaller, lesser known, shall we say, deities associated with different types of weather. So there are deities of like gentle falling rain and like hard crazy rain, or like the north wind, or there's a lot of that kind of stuff there too. So if you have something that you're particularly like vibing on,
well, that's why, like, for me it's like storm weather, like pelting rain, thunder and lightning. Like, that's my favorite kind of weather. So I love that for like Thor energy, you know what I'm saying? I also love a good sea serpent, what with makes ocean storms. Not while I'm on the ocean, I would rather not, thank you. But in general, like visiting the side of the ocean. Next door to the ocean, I like that. Whilst on land and safe in a car. That's quite gangster. But that's also because I don't like sunny or hot days, literally, at all. So F that. I do, however, love the concept of just some asshole on fire riding a chariot through the sky. That is always going to slay me. Just because, like, they always show it and they're like, oh, look how majestic. And I'm like, that guy's just on fire.
That looks a little uncomfortable.
That seems unsettling.
Ooh, yeah.
But, whatever.
Yeah, I feel like overall I want to learn more about weather deities from areas that are like geographically closer to us.
Sure.
So learning about weather deities from indigenous peoples.
Sure. Totally.
I think is the place that I want to like move towards there, because I feel like they're going to know better what we're doing.
Like our weather in this range.
Weather in the region that we live
in.
Right?
Totally. Yeah.
But I only chose ones from pantheons that I am familiar with. Here for that. So, are you looking in? Are you thinking about looking into new ones?
Is death a kind of weather?
I don't
see, but the Klingons say it's a good day to die, so I feel like death was a weather, at least on Klingon.
I don't think that that's what they mean.
At least on Konos.
I'm pretty sure for Klingons, every day is a good day to die.
That's true. There are bad days to die.
Like what?
I don't know. No rack the Geno, bad day to die. Klingon coffee. It's fine.
Okay. All right. Anyway, moving on.
Haha, this witchy podcast has been hijacked with sci-fi. Let's talk about the weather systems that are capable of being had on a starship.
No, we're not doing that.
No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. I'm just saying, all these smooth, shiny floors, they could be carpeted or even grassed.
Yeah, we're not doing that here. No, this is the wrong show. This is the wrong show.
This is the right show.
This is the wrong show.
It's 50% of this show.
Anyway, so the last thing that you can do to sort of add to your weather magic repertoire is to learn some simple weather lore. It's not really magic, but you'll feel extra witchy with it. So there's a whole bunch here. Some of them are fairly specific to where you live. And so you definitely want to look those up. Farmer's Almanac is actually a great place to look at this stuff. You can just go to like farmersalmanac.com, and there is a whole huge section of weather lore. A lot of it has to do with livestock and stuff. So,
Well, weather prediction is just pattern recognition.
Yes. So red sky at night, sailor's delight. Red sky in the morning, sailor's warning.
Yes.
So that is, and sometimes sailor is switched with shepherd here, but I've never really heard that. It's always sailor, but we live close to the ocean. So,
sure.
A red sky is due to high pressure trapping particles like dust or smoke in the air, and the sun lighting them up when it hits a certain like angle on him. And weather also typically moves from east to west. So red sky when the sun is in the west means that higher pressure zones are creating better weather in the days ahead. And when the sun is in the east, it means that the high pressure zone has moved and low pressure, which brings wet weather, is coming.
Nice.
A halo around the sun or the moon, or a milk sky, aka alto stratus clouds. That's when the sky looks clear but is washed out and kind of whitish. We actually had that weather today.
Sure, yes.
And it generally foretells that wet weather is on the way. We have a few days of dry weather before we go back into wet weather, so it makes sense.
The fish say that the weather's not changing anytime soon.
Exactly. But I mean, if you think about it, wet weather is always on its way, just like winter is always coming. So take that where you want it.
It's true. Zeus-ass winter.
Yeah, and I'm also not a meteorologist, so there may be caveats here as well. But anyway, this halo is caused by water or ice crystals at high altitude. Same thing with the milk sky thing. That's water or ice crystals at high altitude, which means that a low pressure zone is on its way.
It's Helios spilling milk.
Exactly. Milk sky. A term that I did not know before this, and now I'm going to use all the time.
Milk sky?
Milk sky. Yeah. And then lastly, frogs croak loudly when it's about to rain. Yes, they do.
Yeah, this is what I'm going to say about this. Frogs croak loudly fucking all the time. They're real loud assholes.
Frogs croak loudly, more loudly, that is, before a rain because of the extra moisture in the air. That signals them that it's a good time to mate, and frogs lay their eggs in water, as well as rain brings them more food, so this is going to be a way more active time for a frog. Frogs also croak loudly during and immediately after a rain, too. So, this is one of those your mileage may vary kind of ones. But for the most part, if you hear the frogs croaking loudly and it's not currently raining or didn't just finish raining, you can be like, rain is on the way.
Sure. Sure, yeah.
And you may just not hear them croaking very loudly during the rain because rain also makes sound.
It's true.
Yeah, so you can look into these sort of things, and it feels extra witchy when you say things like, the fish tell me the weather isn't changing anytime soon.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's just pattern recognition.
Yeah, our tortoise tells me that we're not going to be getting wet weather anytime soon either. He's been sleeping on his front porch for a few days now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Okay, so transitioning into our experiences as well as explaining the whole fish weather thing that I just said. So I have several koi ponds because I have a problem with koi ponds that I fucking absolutely refuse to address. And
I'm not going to address it because I'm here for it.
It's only getting bigger, by the way. I have plans. Such plans. So one of the smaller koi ponds that I have is an unfiltered biosphere. So it's a smaller pond that has 3 or 4 small koi in it that's entirely naturally filtered just by there's a weir in the pond with a gravel a gravel patch behind the weir that I have native plants planted in. And so I started noticing a couple of years back that before a weather change, the pond would get cloudy. Right? It would start to get cloudy. And then once the weather settled into its state, it would clear up again. And to be perfectly honest with you, I don't know exactly what's causing it. I think it has something to do with barometric pressure and temperature shift, which causes things to particulate to be held in suspension in the water more readily as opposed to falling out because of the disturbance of the water or whatever. But what it allows me to do is use the 3 ponds, which I have a small pond, a medium pond, and a large pond, to tell whether or not the change is close or middling distance or far away in change, or if the change is going to be a small, medium, or large change. If I go out there and only the small pond is a little cloudy, then I know we've got a few days and then it's going to get a little dreary or something, but it's not going to be a storm or whatever. But if I go out there and all 3 ponds have gotten have all 3 gotten opaqued up over the last 12 hours or whatever, because I check the ponds. I go outside at least twice a day, right, to look at the ponds or get firewood or do gardening or
being outside
or play with the plants or just wander around outside or drink coffee or fucking whatever. chop wood. So I always look at the pawns because observing something allows you to tell when something's going wrong more quickly. So I can catch a mistake as well as pay attention to when the fish are hungry. So I'm not just like feeding them on a schedule, but I feed them when they're hungry because during the wintertime they need less food and during the summertime they eat more food. And, it's just like a thing. You should be paying attention to stuff and not just use a schedule for this kind of stuff. Interact with reality. Who'd have thunk? But what it's allowed me to do is tell like, oh, if all three pawns are getting a little soupy, then I know like big changes are coming, right? And it may take a week for them to get here, but they're going to be big, right? Storms are brewing, sort of a thing. So I use the pawns as well as, you can tell this with plants like flowers. You can tell this with, we have wood sorrel out where we live, and sorrel closes in the night and opens in the day. So if you see that like close early, then you know that like it's going to be an especially cold night, or it's going to be like dim for the next few days or something like that. I also have like, you can tell how long the sun is going to be based on how much the like bamboo perks up after a rainstorm. The way that some plants, like sometimes you'll get like a little bit of green nubs at the end, like we got a little bit of growth because like we got a little bit of sunlight, but sometimes you'll see like a lot, which means that somehow the plant is telling you that it's going to be like a larger swath of sun in like early springtime and things like that. So like in general, if you're just sort of outside and paying attention between like bird song and like water, especially still water, that's not full of mosquitoes. Like if you have just like a bucket full of water,
don't do that.
You're not doing magic with that. You breed mosquitoes. Don't do that. Fucking pour that shit out. But you can kind of tell on the land how to do that, right? Yeah. So like that's something that you can look towards, right? I mean, it's the same thing with like looking at if you have like a non-insulated windows on like an old shed or something like that, you'll be able to see condensation on the windows when you expect like a larger temperature swing in the day than in the morning, right? It's going to force condensation because of dew point and things like that. Or if you're getting up super early, like when does dew point occur? Did the dew point cause frost? Did the dew point not cause frost, even though it's cold enough outside now that there's frost? Because like when I grew up in Sonoma, like you would have days where like by the time we got up in the morning, it was like still frosty temperature, but the dew didn't freeze, right? Or the dew froze like in the morning, but by the time you got to school, it had already started melting, which means that like the frost is burning off super fast. Or like, are you getting regular fog? Are you getting tule fog, or whatever, low-lying fog? I don't know what that's regularly called. I hope it's called tule fog everywhere else. That's just what I've always called it.
Yeah, I've always called it tule fog also.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Like tule fog, is like look up at the clouds. Look at the mountain ranges. How is the fog or the clouds moving around the mountain ranges? Like are the clouds dipping low so it's not really fog, it's like low clouds? Or is the fog like being held in the valleys? That means that there's not a lot of high wind. It's going to drag valley air up and over the mountains with enough force to distribute that fog back in. So like there's so many ways for you to really tell what's going to happen in the weather by simply observing your local like flora and fauna as it interacts with the weather. And over several years, you're going to start being able to predict what's happening. Bird song and insects, like more of this kind of insect or less of that kind of insect or anything like that. So like, first of all, it makes you feel and sound like mad witchy when you're just like, the fish told me the weather, right? But also
the tortoise foretells.
Yeah, but also, like, this is, in my mind, 50% of weather magic is, like, just being a shaman and, like, observing nature with enough, enough focus and intention that you're able to tell weather changes.
Yeah.
Right? Just by being able to make those small observations in your local region, right? To that end, I think the other half of weather magic is just like that raw, like sympathetic intention magic of just like, been too wet. I don't want no more of this wet. So I'm gonna like, whatever, get like if you have like a wood, we have a wood burning stove. So like, we can like fill a heat safe container, we have like a thing on the stove that's designed to like add humidity back into the house. It's like a cast iron thing. It's a chicken, by the way. But like put water in that, but like don't put a ton of water in that, so that way it like dries out the water in it. Like, you know, instead of keeping the water full, as like intention to like drying out because I got shit I got to do outside or whatever.
Yeah.
You know? So I definitely think and do occasionally use, I mean, I'm very like live and let live when it comes to the weather, like just adapt, right? Yeah. Like you don't need to be that sassy about it. But, you know, like, it's just like you put a scarecrow up to scare away the crows, even though I've seen a bunch of crows land on scarecrows, so that shit ain't doing nothing.
Yeah.
Right? But it's like putting up a scarecrow, right? You can put up like a weather charm or what have you, right? You know, it's not like if you hang wind chimes, it's gonna call the wind.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, I believe in both sides of it for sure, but I use my observations of nature to be able to predict relatively accurately how the weather's gonna change.
Yes, I do the same thing.
You know?
But I use different things that I look at. I use different metrics. I use the tortoise and I use the clouds because I'm not just looking at the clouds to see what kind of weird things I can see in them.
It's a lie. She's only looking at them for dragons and stuff. Yeah, don't listen to her lies.
I saw a cloud once that looked like the United States. Anyway,
freedom, patriotism,
there's a freedom cloud.
Gunpowder.
Yeah, so I look at clouds like that too. I definitely know the like red sky one. That's one that I've always thought of. And I've known about the frogs one. In fact, like in medieval Germany, people used to keep frogs in a jar because that would help them know when it's about ready to rain.
Yeah,
there's a whole bunch of like weird things that people did with like animals for that. So I've always been interested in it because it is like a fairly witchy thing. But for me, it's less about trying to control the weather than trying to understand what's coming and also to harness the weather from like the magical standpoint, switching from the mundane. You know, from the magical standpoint, rather than trying to make a weather of a specific type happen, I would rather use that energy to use the power to supercharge the spell, just like you would use charged water or a crystal or herbs or, you know, whatever it is. Like, I would rather use the weather to do that. And, you know, I find that that's for me, like the place to be. But I'm not necessarily doing it as sympathetic magic, but the more I think about it, the more I want to try using sympathetic magic in that.
Yeah,
it's mostly using the like general vibes of the weather to like do the thing. So like a soft, gentle rain is like a more like tender kind of a spell. That's like a soft, gentle rain is like a self-love spell. Like that's a good time to do that kind of spell for me anyway. You know, everybody may feel differently about this kind of thing.
Totally.
And you know, solar, you know, like strong sunny days, those are for bringing light into situations for me. And windy days are making things go away. Totally. You know, so for me, I'm using like that sort of way to tie that magic in together to sort of harness those spells. And then an interesting piece there is we are just about the time.
VR.
We are VR. We're just about the time where the Fae are coming out of their hibernation in our little part of the forest. And we have learned that when there are big storms, like sort of out of the hibernation season, which is just kind of like the winter time, the Fae don't really like being out in the cold and in the rain and in the storms. And we actually have had the Fae ask us to take if they can take shelter in our house during a storm. And we have said yes to that because we always try to partner with the Fae and create that kind of you know, good little reciprocal relationship there. And that's another way that you can kind of think of magic, is certain magical beings may not want to be out and about in that kind of weather.
Yeah. Well, and just the same, some may want to be out and about in that weather, right? So, like, again, like turning back to that Thor thing, like you're trying to do like Thor-based magic, right? Or tragic, if you will, which you should. but like, you know, doing that kind of magic during a large storm. So I like to do this thing we have a covered porch. And I like to do this thing on a big rainstorm is like go outside in a pounding rainstorm when it's safe, obviously be safe. And I think of it as storm breathing, and that's just like a inside of the head thing. Which is like just like stand out there in the rain. I'm not a like it's cold outside, wear a coat kind of person, right? I'm insulated of my own volition. And have a pretty high tolerance for the cold. So like stand out there and like really observe the storm and try and like breathe with the storm. Cause like rain isn't just like, right? It sort of like comes and goes as like the like stuff moves across. And this is especially good to do at night when you can't really see the sky, right? Is try and like breathe with the storm. And I find that you can find this triple point. You know what a triple point is? No. A triple point is at certain pressures and temperatures, some materials can have a triple point where it can easily transition between gas, liquid, and solid, right? So it can freeze, boil, and evaporate all within like 1 or 2 degrees of a thing. You could get like these little like closed boxes with some sort of chemical. I don't remember what the chemical is off the top of my head. It's been forever. Like I saw this in high school. Where at like just the warmth of your hand will cause it to like the water to like evaporate. And if you set it still, it'll like rain back into water. And with like just a little bit of coldness, it'll like freeze solid on the bottom. So it's called a triple point. So it's like a phase balance state, right? So when you phase transition, we all know that like water boils at 100 degrees centigrade, 212 Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
Right? So like, but you can bring water to above 212 without it boiling. Just like you can bring water below 0 C or 32 F without it freezing. And that's when you've seen people like get the like beer bottle or a water bottle in the freezer and they take it out and it's still liquid, and then you like bang it on the counter and then it's like and it freezes. Okay. So there's this place of like storm meditation that I feel like you can dial in where the balance between prediction and control doesn't exist. They now occupy the same place, right? Where like you're breathing with the storm, right? And whether or not you're breathing the storm into and out of phases of heavy and light rainfall, or you are perfectly predicting the storm moving in and out of rainfall, or the storm controlling you in and out of breathing due to its rainfall, doesn't matter, right? Because you've reached a triple point where you and the storm and the pattern that exists in your breathing and in the storm's motion can all occupy the exact same point, right? So that's why I think of it as a triple point.
Yeah.
Right? The storm's energy and your energy, right? The storm's rhythm and your rhythm can like coincide. Right? And so I think of it as like storm breathing, sometimes very easy to do, sometimes completely unachievable. This is a thing that like I don't do very often, but I do occasionally. It has only ever worked for me with like big heavy storms or waves in the ocean, right? I can kind of get there in the ocean when I'm like swimming in the waves and stuff. But that's just because I'm like a weird ocean person. I'm just like a weird water boy, whatever, dog. But I can get in that point where like sometimes you can like sort of like breathe with the rhythm of the storm. And like it feels like you're pushing the storm into like heavier and heavier rain or lighter and lighter rain. But like, are you pushing the storm, or is your brain in such rhythm with nature that you're able to predict up and down? And this isn't like an intentional control thing, but this is the kind of control that comes from meditation, right? Like when you meditate, they say clear your mind, but it's not intentional mind clearness. That will not achieve meditation. Meditation is an acceptance of the things that come through your mind as they come through, and then releasing those things as they come through, right? So like you become a mesh that thoughts blow through, like a screen on a window, right? And with time, you find that you can rest in the moments where there is no wind moving through the screen, right? You can rest in the moments where your pattern, your rhythm, your thinking, and the storm's pattern and rhythm and thinking, to anthropomorphize the storm, are in such synchronicity that, like, whether you're controlling the storm or the storm is controlling you, or you're just like hyper predicting the storm, because let's be perfectly real, the human brain is a very powerful prediction machine. I mean, like, remarkably powerful, more powerful than we give any credit to. We can predict a bunch of shit, but it requires clarity, right? It requires that, like, heightened state. And there are times when especially when we're like, oh, it's raining, and then, like, you'll see like 5 minutes into this rainstorm, we're like, damn, it is hooving out there.
Yeah, it is.
The earth
down.
is wet. What is going on?
Yeah.
And then I just like to go stand outside for like 5 or 10 minutes and just like meditate in the storm. Again, not in the rain wet, because I'm not trying to do that shit.
But outside,
but underneath something, and not underneath a tree, because if there's thunder and lightning, that's how you die.
Yeah.
Ground
when
effect.
thunder roars, go indoors.
Yes, I don't. Is that a thing that they say?
It absolutely is. Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. And if you are ever caught, this is just like aside. I'm not a doctor or a scientist, but if you're ever caught in a lightning storm like that and lightning is striking around you, keep both feet on the ground. Never ever pick up a foot. Never ever touch something that's grounded. Right? Because then you become the conductor and your poor little human heart can't handle it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So don't do it. But yeah, so like I definitely do like storm breathing, or the thing that I may have just invented. I mean, I doubt that I have. I'm not.
Sometimes it'd be like that,
but sometimes it do in fact be like that.
Yeah.
No, it's just like a thing that I've noticed and like slowly been practicing in my like journey through meditation, right? So it's just like micro meditations or any of the other stuff that I do. That's like kind of like meditation aside, right?
Yeah.
Asymmetric to the traditional idea of like sitting on a fancy mat with your body in a very specific position, you know?
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing. So yeah, that's what we do about that. Is that all we have about that?
That is all that we have about that.
That's all that we have about that. Listen to the fish. The fish know what's happening.
Yeah. And the fae. They also generally know.
That's true. Yeah, everybody knows. We don't, because we got like cell phones and shit to distract us.
We had a lot of things we're thinking
attention.
about.
There's like so much stuff going on. It's so busy.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anywho, this is whatever this is. Ostara 104.
Ostara 104. Weather magic.
Yeah, weather magic. So before we fully wrap this up, I want to give a shout out to our patrons, since we also shouted out our Patreon. So shout out to our patrons, Alan, Miranda, Somewhere, Helena, Alexa, and Panda. You guys are the best. Hooty hoo. Also, if you've noticed, there have been some changes on our Patreon.
That's right.
Check those out. Exploring those. I still have like stuff I need to do, a la write-ups, but like all the changes have been made.
And we've got a video coming out soon.
We've got a video coming out.
This when it comes out.
Yeah. Within a few days of this coming out, we're going to have our Patreon update video come out on our YouTube channel, which will go into all the details of the changes to the Patreon. Just because, like, I'm going to write some stuff up for all of the bits, but it's going to be easier if I'm allowed to wax pseudo-poetically into a camera, as I love to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can join our Patreon. You can join these awesome folk, these absolutely rad gangsters, who are doing magic and other fun stuff with us. Our Patreon is patreon.com/nerdjive. Links are in wherever the hell links are, based on how you're perceiving us right now. And yeah, it's you guys are the best. Join up. You get access to all the stuff. We got Books of Shadows. We got a whole bunch of new stuff. We'll go into all of that for the second video, so stay tuned for that on the YouTube channel. And if you're listening to this on the podcast network, check out the YouTube channel, where you can look at our faces as well as catch the other stuff we do that isn't the podcast, like movie reviews. We just did a review for Dune Part 2, as well as like Star Trek stuff, and we have projects coming up with
all kinds of stuff that we're going to talk about in that upcoming video.
So check that out. But yeah, either way, I have been John Norgrove. This has been Julie Norgrove. This has been the Horn
and Cauldron
podcast. And we will catch you guys next time for more mystical, magical mayhem. Stay frosty, folks.
Yeah, and don't forget, breathe in self-confidence and breathe out self-doubt.